Hello, everybody. Once again, it is the American Doofus Show. Don't be a doofus. We've got Chris with us again. If you don't know who Chris is, he runs an international security company and has lots of experience in many different things. Go back and watch the videos. He's been on several times. They're all worth watching if you haven't seen him before. And we've got so much tonight to talk about. Let's just jump right in. Let's start with Haiti. President was assassinated. Government is unstable. And then they get hit with an earthquake.
Yeah, well, the country's always been unstable. Let's start with that.
Okay.
It's always been, there's always been instability in Haiti, and that's coming from the time the Marines were there. And I think it was like maybe 1915 and a little bit beyond. All right, that's where the instability actually began. Even though the United States is trying to create stability, and then of course we install or give them free elections to install one of their presidents. And of course, you know, we talk about I guess it's what's his name, Doc.
Oh yeah,
Duvier, right?
Doc Duvier, yeah.
Right, and the Tuton was that the Makut, Tonton or Tonton Makut, whoever it is, right? And they've created more problems in Haiti than you could possibly imagine. But then not only that, you have the corruption in Haiti, which is ridiculous. Okay, I mean, most governments are corrupt. Okay, but there's certain levels of corruption. There's overt corruption, right? And then there's covert corruption. A lot of these countries in the Caribbean, it's specifically Haiti, their corruption is actually overt.
Wow.
Right. So I mean, that's just business as usual for you know, for the people that don't know. And that's a lot of due to the corruption in the country. That's what's going to cause the majority of the instability. But then, of course, we talked about, I think on the last show I was on, we talked about the assassination
right.
of the president. And there really hasn't been that much of a power vacuum, thank God, to where other groups or, you know, someone who's trying to get in, you know, couldn't, and then started a whole bunch of mess to really destabilize that country. So, you know, the gangs are out. I haven't talked to any of my people in Haiti for a minute, but from what I'm gathering, it's not as bad as what it could be.
Good. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Now,
real quick. Last night I did a brief episode and I put up some spots where people, if they wanted to help, where they could send money to aid the Haitian people. Does that money get to the people? Or do the supplies get to the people?
Normally, I think one should go through like USAID.
Uh-huh.
All right. That's, for those of you who don't know, that's actually part of the State Department. It's their international aid to like foreign countries, right? So at the embassies, there's always like a USAID in-country team or country team there. And they're the ones who actually go out and distribute humanitarian assistance.
Okay.
To people,
to the actual people, instead of just giving money to the government.
Exactly.
Right. That's good. That's what I wanted to make clear, that, you know, that's where we're trying to get the help to the people, not to corrupt governments.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. That leads us into Afghanistan, kind of, because we established, as you mentioned, we kind of established the government in Haiti going back into the early 1900s.
Right.
We just, within the past 2 decades, tried to establish the government in Afghanistan. Did we bother to ask the Afghan people what what they wanted in a government, or did we just kind of shove things as we normally do and hope them or expect them to accept it?
It's what we normally do. You know, that's a poor country, and of course, you know, our government knows everything, and of course, we try to do nation building in that country, except we're not very good at nation building, as you can see what's going on in our country, right?
Good point.
So it's really not for us to dictate to them how their country should be run, because they try to mirror it off of us. You know, we try to even the security forces, the army, they try to mirror the army off of us. That's what they're trying to duplicate. Right? Okay. Our army is like really complex. These are simplistic people. These are these for the most part. Afghans are agrarians. Most of them live in the countryside.
Live off the land, live off of farming and grain and
right. They're farmers. And then we're gonna try and come and teach them some really complex things like logistics and just everything, and they're not accustomed to that.
Right.
So, but then also with the government was corrupt, as most developing countries are, and I talked about the corruption there, in Haiti. It's just the same as it is there in Afghanistan.
It's overt. It's like out in the open.
Yeah,
you know who you need to go to get something done.
Right, and it's I think it's a little bit worse in Afghanistan than it is in Haiti.
Okay, all right. A lot of U.S. troops were killed or maimed in Afghanistan for security and stability. Now, this is a question that was sent in to me. Do we look at that as in vain, or do we look at that as giving it the good old American try? Because the numbers, while they aren't massive, it's a person from a family. Each person is a person from the family. Each loss is too much, in my opinion. Did we just spend 20 years for nothing?
Pretty much, because you're not going to beat the guerrillas, and that's what the Taliban is. That's a guerrilla group. And furthermore, their revenue annually is like $1.5 billion.
The Taliban?
Yeah. So they get a lot of their money from poppy, the heroin. It's almost $500 million. Then they get the money from the mining. So remember, they have a lot of copper, iron ore, lithium, uranium. All that stuff is over there in Afghanistan. All right. So they get almost, I think it's like $450 million out of that. And then there's, the real estate. They tax the people. Then they get special donations from foreign countries. So it really comes out to be like $1.5 million or $billion per year. And when you have that type of money, there's a whole lot you can do.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So yeah.
And for those that are just watching this show for the first time, that are just watching the American Doofus show for the first time, real quick, you're connected to Afghanistan.
Right. I did 3 combat advisory rotations in Afghanistan. While I was assigned to Siege of Sodov. I was actually working out of the intelligence community, but I'm assigned to the Siege of Sodov, and I was assigned to a Special Forces ODA while I was in Afghanistan. So I was over there training, mentoring, advising. We call that train, advise, and assist mission to the Afghan National Police, National Directorate Security, and the Afghan local police. So I did 2 years with state in that position, and then 1 year in DOD as a DOD advisor, where I mentor, train, advise the Afghan National Police on how to deter, disrupt, dismantle insurgent terrorist cells. So you know
what you're talking about,
right? So me spending 3 years over there, but then I went back again for the 4th time as an advisor for our government, teaching what we call human behavior pattern recognition analysis to U.S. and coalition forces in Afghanistan. It was pretty much, there were a whole bunch of green on blue, a whole bunch of green on blue attacks. All right. Where it's usually green on blue or green, but blue on green attacks. So what it is, that the Afghan security forces were coming in and shooting our advisors, our SF, our security forces, our military guys, right?
Right. Attack from friendlies or people that are supposed to be friendly.
Right, right. And what it is our job to teach human behavior pattern recognition. Now, behavior profiling is nothing more than, all right, we're reading your behavioral patterns to detect when you're going to do something. So that's what we're teaching, coalition and U.S. forces, so they could mitigate, all those attacks on themselves. So like I said, it's actually over 3 years, almost like 3.5 years I was over there doing this stuff. So, I see it, I saw it, at the provincial level of the Afghan government, from just even the logistics, even trying to get them ammunition, okay, for to go fight. It was like you had to pull teeth, even for me to get them uniforms. It was like you had to pull teeth just to go down to Kandahar to their facility to get them their uniforms, to get them equipment. It was like almost mission impossible. And it was almost like you can't bribe the people, but that's normally how it's done, so you can get your stuff.
Wow. Okay, so what the people that you trained, are they looked at as traitors now?
I can't say they're looked at as traitors, but because a lot of times, you know what, during the daytime, the police were the police, but at nighttime, they were the Taliban.
Yeah, I had a feeling that might be the case.
Yeah, so I mean, it was actually a matter of economics. They can double dip,
Wow.
And because the Taliban pay a little bit more than the regular security forces, so they would double dip and get a little bit extra money. So.
I get you. Yeah. What should be our concern as Americans geopolitically about the fall of Afghanistan to the Taliban?
Well, just the simple fact that now all those insurgent terrorist groups can go back over there.
Safe spot.
Right. Train up and, they can do pretty much wherever they want. So you got like
AQ,
ISIS, groups like Boko Haram, whomever,
now they all have a safe spot.
Right. Now they have a safe haven to go over there and train and to come back and do whatever they want to do. So that's the bad part of it. So, I mean, I was talking to one of my buddies today. He's a Special Forces Command Sergeant Major. And we were talking, we were like, when I asked him, I said, why don't you think we left in the wintertime instead of leaving now? Because wintertime that's when fighting season stops. Like your people, for your audience that don't know, like spring through fall is like, that's when all the fighting occurs. Wintertime, everything stops. And that's when those guys, go back to Pakistan. And so wintertime would have been the ideal time for us to pull out.
Interesting.
Yeah, instead of us, leaving right now. This is the middle of fighting season. So for them to,
it's almost like we're trying to lose.
We lost when we started that nation building, because we're really not.
We're forcing something on them that they don't want.
Right, but we're really not very good at it. So, but once again, I think I said this in one of your other episodes, that we're not very good at irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare. We're not very good at it. And other examples, like I said, Iraq, Vietnam, and even Syria. Okay, we're not good at it. And here's another example, Afghanistan. Right. So right now we're kind of like the laughing stocks of the world, you know, because we spent 20 years there and we came out with a goose egg.
Yeah. And we laughed at Russia for spending 20 years there and coming out with a goose egg.
Right. You see?
Yeah.
And in the whole
I'm old enough to remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing about it is it's really hard to beat a guerrilla force. It's, you know, when you're in their country.
Like on their home turf, their home, you know, for their home turf.
Right. And they have all the community support behind them. So it's just really, and they have, like I said, the Taliban's got a whole lot of money behind them as well. So it becomes really difficult for a foreign group to come in and actually try to beat that group, because at the time, you know, they go to Pakistan in the wintertime, and then in the summertime, they might be in the mountains, but at the same time, they might be in the communities or the villages, and you don't know.
Yeah.
You have foreign fighters coming in all the time from all over the creation. So, I mean, there's just so many different ways and things that, you know, you can look at this, but it's bottom line is you're not going to beat them. And plus, we're just not very good at it. We're just not very good at it. That's all.
All right. Do we, this is kind of in general, does the United States tend to prepare for the last war? What I mean by that is, do we use tactics that have proven successful in the past in situations that they don't imply? Like you're saying, we're really bad at guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, well, it's kind of obvious. You figure after losing in Iraq and
Vietnam before that.
Right. You know, there's kind of like lessons learned. And apparently we haven't learned anything from our lessons.
That's my thing. Lessons, there are lessons to be learned, but we don't seem to learn them.
Right. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to get different results.
Einstein's definition of insanity.
Exactly. So
okay, so not only does, in my opinion, okay, how many troops do we have there now? Do we know?
I'm not sure, but what's been reported, they said like I think 5,000, 6,000 troops. But I'm like, that's a lot of troops. But I know everyone, from what's reported, they're saying everyone's out of the embassy, you know, and they've gone to the airport to stay. And
the president of Afghanistan has fled, and basically the country's fallen.
Right. But for us, our embassy now is at the airport.
Okay.
So I think eventually, you know, we're supposed to be able to process those people so they can get to the United States. You know, a lot of those Afghans that helped us.
They've been helping us for 20 years, and now all of a sudden we're going to hang them out to dry.
Right. So we're supposed to help them, but I heard there's like almost 10,000 of them. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people
to be processed. And what I'm gathering is I don't think we're going to be able to do that. So a lot of people up there, you know.
Damn.
So you have to keep in mind, and then not only that, I also heard today, I had two different reports that the Taliban were firing on the airport, you know. So
that'll complicate things.
Right. So I mean, there's supposed to be a small contingent there of, you know, the ambassador and like some guys from DSS, Diplomatic Security Service, and maybe some security contractors. And they're supposed to be leaving. So, you know, that's just, I mean, and you're gonna leave those people there possibly, you know, and what's gonna happen to them? You know, what's
going to happen to them. We know they're going to be murdered.
Right. But you just it's just, as my buddy said, it's a shit show.
Yeah, it is, and we don't have any toilet paper.
Right. Like we just don't plan for things the way we should.
And for 5,000 people, 5,000 troops sounds like it's a lot of troops, but in the situation they're in, you need an overwhelming force in a small area in order to extradite the people you need to extradite.
Right. And apparently they're all out now. You're out in the sea.
All right.
And so the only thing is I I just talked to my buddy today. I said, now what if they start the IDF, indirect fire? You
Yeah.
know, during the reports they didn't say if it's gunfire or indirect fire, which is like mortar fire, coming from the Taliban. So if it's like indirect fire, that's really bad. You can deal with the gunfire, but IDF, that's pretty bad. No, that's mortar fire. So I seriously hope that they have good bunkers, to protect themselves from the IDF.
Okay, talk about leading us into the next topic, which is Iran, Israel, the proximity of Afghanistan and everything that's going on there, the proximity of Syria and how it's basically incredibly war torn, to what we've both heard and what you've shared with me, that Israel is basically giving itself the green light to attack Iran whenever it wants to, whether anybody's going to help them or not.
Right. They're talking about unilateral strike on Iran. But the United States and Britain said, oh, we're going to help out, because I don't know if your audience is aware that I think it was maybe a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, that there was I think it was
tanker that was
tanker, right? Yeah. That had a British and a Romanian, but I think it was a British ship that the Iranians attacked, and one of the Brits and the actually Romanian also were killed. And they're saying, okay, this is enough of that. Israel saying, you know what, enough. You've done enough damage, Iran. And Britain and Israel were like, hey, you know what, we're going to join in on this because they killed that, the sailor. So, that, and, they're saying they're ready to strike. And Biden and I guess Boris Johnson, that's the PM of Britain.
Great Britain.
Yeah, he's saying, hey, we're ready to strike. But there's 6,000 troops. Like Herat in Afghanistan is on the far west end of Afghanistan. Actually, it borders Iran.
Okay.
So, but I really don't think we're going to put troops back into Afghanistan just to attack. If we did
attack Iran,
right? We're not going to attack from the west. I think it'd be more or less an air attack, to take out whatever we need to take out. But I mean, who knows? They might put in ground forces. Like I said, it's 5,000 to 6,000 even. I think might be 8,000 troops overall. That might be a ground force for if they need to do something over there. And
okay, so just to be clear here real quick, you're saying like we know we've got about 5,000 in Afghanistan now. If there's a call for more troops to come into Afghanistan, that could potentially be to try to stabilize Afghanistan, or it could be to ready an attack on Iran.
Right. Because I think there's additional 3,000 troops in Kuwait. So,
and Israel's already hit Hezbollah in Lebanon, correct?
Right. In southern Lebanon, they were shooting rockets into Israel, and Israel just pretty much let loose. Yeah. And then Syria, I think, shot some rockets into Israel. So it's just going to just turn into a big mess eventually, Eventually. Right. So that's something that we really need to keep an eye on.
And that leads us into the next topic, the last topic at the moment anyway, depending on what comes up, but here in the United States and what's going on here in the United States. And what is, because if you, like you said, it's just all leading up to something that's going to happen eventually. Is this like a perfect storm, if you will, to where all these confluences of different factions and different energies and different locations geographically are all kicking off at once? Is is there a possibility we get to like a critical mass where just everything just goes off?
And that's something that's very real. If you take a look what's going on around the world, especially.
So I'm not crazy. I'm not a doofus. It's a very real thing to be aware of.
Right. If people are paying attention to what's going on in different countries, especially with this, the mandates with the COVID with the passports, stuff like that, people are starting to get a little bit fed up. I don't know if if you're
Australia.
Australia, Canada. Just today, I read in Canada, a lot of the people were upset about the passport vaccines and actually stormed an injection place in Canada.
And that's rare for Canada. They usually they usually write a strongly worded letter.
Right.
As their form of protest. I can say that because I was married to a Canadian for a while. And that was one of my jokes to her, but it's serious.
Right. So
you're really serious.
Right. So a lot of people are not trying to have those passports.
Right.
And a lot of them are actually really starting to, there's a lot of anger involved with this.
Oh, absolutely.
And eventually, this is what I see. Eventually, people are going to start blowing their lids. If they start going back into lockdowns, now you're stuck in the house for however long, that just creates more stress. So eventually, something has to give. And who knows? This, that stuff just might turn violent. It's protest now, right? It's protest now. The next step.
I put up a brief episode earlier this afternoon of basically a large scale fight in Los Angeles, California, between pro-Trump anti-vaxxers and pro-vaxxer Antifa Black Bloc. So yeah, people are they're losing it now.
Right. So
it's just starting.
Right. So, I mean, eventually it's going to crescendo into something really big. So it's going to be like people that don't want to take the vaccine eventually against the government, and that's what's going to happen. You see,
that's horrible. My next question was going to be, should we be prepped to be able to survive for 72 hours?
All day. You should be prepped for that regardless.
Right. And the only reason I was asking is because I got, I talked last week and the beginning of this week about being prepped for something, even if it's weather related. And I got a real nice email note from a person I want to acknowledge that said, hey, I wasn't never prepped for anything. And you start talking about it and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I went and bought some stuff. And 2 days later, our power went out and was out for 4 days. Mm-hmm. So thank you for saying that.
Right.
And so I'm acknowledging that I saw that email and thank you. I'm glad you listened, because I think we all ought to be prepped for 72 hours. And it's beginning to sound like we may need to be prepped a little bit longer and possibly for some more severe things than we might imagine.
Right. And that's what I really feel is coming down the road here. Because like I said, a lot of people are I think they're going to start to revolt. They're going to start to buck a little bit with these mandates. So just it's kind of like if you study history and you study Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
This is kind of like how it starts.
It was a perfect storm. It started with people being unhappy, blaming the Jews about being unhappy, having something called Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass. And Hitler was appointed legally. He didn't take the government over. He was appointed illegally. He was appointed legally. And then he was moved from the position he was appointed to into chancellor. And the brown shirts basically came in and silenced any opposition. And all of a sudden there's fascism.
Right. Right. So that's what you have to be concerned about.
It's a brief version of what happened before.
Right. And like I said, if you don't know history, it's going to repeat itself.
Absolutely.
So,
All right. I want to get a couple other things in here that people have asked me to ask. The southern border situation.
oh yeah.
Okay. For a long time, I thought it was getting blown out of proportion, that, there wasn't really this, but we really have literally thousands of people at the southern border. I don't, there's rumors that they're being shipped places, they're just being let in. This isn't about that necessarily as it is about this question. Is there a threat to national security from people that are trying to or have crossed the border?
All day long. If a lot of people, sneak across the border undetected. So you don't know who they are. They caught people from Hezbollah trying to sneak in,
Yeah.
from, across the border. So I mean, those are the ones they caught. What about the ones they didn't catch?
Good point. And you've mentioned that some intelligence suggests that back to Iran, there are probably, if not almost definitely, Iranian cells in America.
Oh, they've been here.
Right.
They've been here for some time.
Right.
That's not like they just,
yeah, I shouldn't have asked that now, because it makes it appear like I'm saying they just all crawled across the border. I didn't mean that. I'm just saying that there are bad actors in our country, legitimately.
Oh yeah.
And have been here for a while.
Exactly. So, hopefully Homeland Security is doing their job, doing their due diligence and all these people. So, because, we don't want something catastrophic to happen here in our country again. So,
all right. That comes to another question that somebody else asked. A level of concern. Do you have a level of concern about damage conspiracy theories could cause? And is there a level of concern in the intelligence community as a whole?
I mean, there is, but like I saw you put something up about.
Yeah, I've been following it hard.
Yeah, that you see that right there goes to show you how easily manipulated people are, how weak-minded they are. You see,
they got some crap.
Right. And like that, I was like, when I heard that, I was like, I laughed. And I'm like, someone really believe that?
Yeah.
And then kill their kids. It's like,
yeah,
that's a problem.
Yeah.
And think about it. He's not the only one that actually believes that.
Right.
I mean, there's other ones that actually believe that, and so
much more.
That's really dangerous. And I think within the community, we have to figure out who the nuts are, and of course we decipher what's real, what's not real. Mm-hmm. That's what's real, what's not real. But when you're not mentally stable, which a lot of these people are not, you're going to believe all sorts of crazy stuff.
Okay.
So,
all right. One last question that I didn't write down, but I've been asked about this quite often. HAARP and controlling the weather. Japan's getting pummeled right now, weather-wise. 500,000 people evacuated because of so much rain. Does the United States government, or I shouldn't ask that because you wouldn't tell me if you knew. Is there a possibility the United States government has the capabilities on some scale, whether it be small or large, to impact or control the weather?
I think any large government that's technologically advanced would be able to do that.
Okay.
That's what I think. Okay. And I can't really sit there and say that our government can do that, but I can't say our government can't do that either.
Okay. All right. See? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I see. Okay, for all four of the major topics tonight, is there something that people need to know that the media is not going to tell us? Is there something that people need to know that the media is not going to tell us about Haiti?
About Haiti. Oh, okay. If we do go into Haiti, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if you remember, President Biden said, well, at this point in time, we will not be sending troops.
Right.
You notice how it wasn't, no, we're not sending troops, but he said at this point in time. Haiti has a large supply of natural resources, an abundance of natural resources.
Right.
Now, if we were to go
in there, are we securing people or are we securing profit?
Our government doesn't go in and do anything because we're nice. We go in and do things because we're getting something out of it.
Yeah.
Just how,
okay.
That's how we operate. So we would go in to do something to make it look like we're doing something for the people, some humanitarian assistance. It's just what we call cover for action. Right? Okay. But meanwhile, we're out there getting all the natural resources and stocking them up for us. That's all.
All right. So Afghanistan, is there something that people need to know that the media is not going to tell us?
You know what? Yeah, I don't think anyone's like really mentioned about the natural resources and how we benefited off of that in Afghanistan as well.
So we've already pretty much cleaned them out. It's time to go home. Well, in our minds.
Well, that's the part, you know, that's
that the media is not going to tell us.
Yeah, that they're not going to tell you.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
So what they'll do is they'll focus on what everyone, you know, the war, this and that. But meanwhile, oh, look at, you know, the whole nation building. We don't even do that.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, oh, here's our cover. We'll say we'll do nation building. Let's get their natural resources and, you know, do whatever. And I see this, I saw this in Mali in 2019 with the French, with their whole counterterrorism mission. Okay, they might go out, kill one or two terrorists here and there, but they were actually there to grab the Malian natural resources, all right, and bring them back to France. So I've seen it there.
And Africa's the next target.
Right. I mean, you know, but you know what? China's already there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, that's, you know, and, you know, when I'm over in like Nigeria, whatever country I'm in, and I'm, you know, at the embassy and I'm talking to whomever, I'm just like, well, you know, the Chinese are here, you know, like, what are we doing to counter their actions, you know, for infrastructure or whatever? It's just like, there's always a blank look on someone's face or they just don't have an answer. Yeah. So I'm like, hey, okay, well, they're just here and they're going to be here. And there's nothing that we can do because now they own it. And these countries, you know, China gives these countries all this money, you know, their leaders all this money. So they're going to let them come in and do exactly what they want to do. But meanwhile,
pretend like they're not corrupt.
Yeah. You know, and they're raping Africa left and right, you know, and there's not going to be anything left for the people. You know, Africa is a very, very wealthy continent, but these African leaders are so weak and they'll do anything for money. You know, they'll sell their soul for all this money. So, yeah, you know, that's just how it is.
All right. Finally, what do people need to know that the media is not going to tell us about what's coming between what's coming civil war wise between our own country?
Well, if there's going to be a civil war, it's going to be based upon this
vaccine or no vaccine.
Yep, exactly. That's what I'm seeing, because that's what's leading up to right now. And I mean, I think you can see it. I think the most of your audience can see it, that, you know, people are getting fed up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, mask on, mask off, you know, you're getting extra boosters for this, extra boosters for that, you know, and people are like, well, I'm not taking that. And people say, oh, you need to take it. It's good for you. And other people just saying, hey, you know what? I don't know what's in it. I'm not taking it.
Yeah.
You know? So,
and we should respect that. We should respect people that think that way.
Right. But then you have the government now sitting there saying, hey, they're passing bills or trying to pass bills. If you don't take the vaccine, you can't travel by by train or by plane or by boat,
and it'll eventually get to, you can't have a job, you can't have health insurance.
Right. So you're really trying to
totally divide the country.
Right. You see, and that's all bad.
That's all bad. Yeah. All right, man. Anything you wanna add?
No, that's it. But hey, thank you for having me on your show again. It's great.
I appreciate it. It always scares the hell out of me. It always makes me think, and makes me want to do a bit more analysis on the stuff I'm trying to do. So thank you for being on here.
Thank you, sir.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. We'll talk to all of you soon. Thank you for watching. It's the American Doofus Show. Subscribe, like, share, leave a comment, but don't be a doofus. I love you all. Thanks, Chris.
No worries.